Talking to myself again, but it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not.
Good evening, welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. It is the Monday night transfer show with me, Buramag, Tune Tipster, whatever you want to call him, Joe Walker, as always. And we've made a habit of getting a special guest on. So we've invited Ben on, a.k.a. Burnsie, mouth of the Tyne on Twitter. Somebody who a lot of you on Twitter will be very familiar with. If you're not on social media, you probably won't know who the guy is. But somebody else who's a Newcastle fan who always has plenty to say on social media. And we just decided to get him on to share his opinions. Welcome, mate.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting us, Steve.
Yeah, no worries, mate. Good to see you. Okay, as last week we started talking, Joe, with Sean about incomings. Let's do this a little bit differently tonight. Let's just talk about a few outgoings, because I've seen in the chat, especially over the last few days, that the different shows that we've been doing, people saying, "Who do you think's going to go? Are we any closer of getting rid of this one? Are we any closer of getting rid of that one?" So just picking players out of the thin air. I guess the first one I want to talk about is Matt Ritchie. I mean, look, he's been a great servant to the club, Joe. Somebody who I've got a lot of admiration for. He stuck with us when the times were tough. He should have been captain for me. I still say that. He did the captain's job without the captain's armband most of the time. But yeah, what do you think? Where do you think his future lies?
I'm really glad, Steve, we're doing outgoings, because just before the show I got challenged on Twitter to see if I could go an hour without mentioning Botman or Hugo or Diab. And I was going to just tell you that I couldn't do it. Also I'm glad we've got Ben, because for a minute I thought it was Ben Jacobs and my head started hurting so on. So outgoings, yeah, Matt Ritchie, Steve, completely agree with you. What a lad. I think he's been fantastic. I think the job that he was brought in to do, he's done. He's very, very rarely let us down, although, maybe certainly last season and towards the end of the season before, maybe we all come to the conclusion that he'd seen better days. Great to have around the squad. I'm sure he's great in the dressing room, notoriously known for having continuous pops at Steve Bruce, so he'll always have a place in my heart. But in terms of quality and in terms of that squad, I think if you think about that left-hand side now, it is likely that Sam Maximin will be staying. We've had Almiron kind of switching sides. You've got Murphy who can do a job on either side. We've now obviously signed Matt Target. We've got Paul Dummett on a contract. Actually, if you think about that left-hand side, and you start to think about Ritchie, where would he fit in? And even if we think about would he do as a job in the League Cup, in the earlier rounds of the FA Cup, arguably with the squad that we've got and hopefully the players we're going to be bringing in, I'm not entirely sure he's going to get a game. So he'll go with my blessing if he's gone. I think it's always been on the cards that he's potentially going to be going back to Bournemouth. We've been talking about Bournemouth and Ritchie for 2 or 3 seasons now. So, yeah, he'll go with my blessing, Steve. And I think, he'll do a job for someone, particularly if he's going to drop down to the Championship. And I think looking at our squad, it's been levelled at us, and I'm sure there'll be quite a few players that we come on to tonight that are arguably Championship players. And I certainly, if he's not going to make it in the Premier League, he'll absolutely do a job for somebody in that Championship. So, yeah, he'll be away, and all the best, Matty.
Yeah, just letting everybody know, we will focus on some of the potential incomings in the second half of the show, so don't panic. We will talk about those coming in. We just want to have a little focus on those going out. Yeah, Ben, I mean, what's your take on Matt Ritchie? I mean, I think Joe's nailed it all there pretty much to the mast, hasn't he?
Yeah, just echo those sentiments, really. Just what a fantastic pro he's been, especially in that Championship season, as were a lot of them. Of that kind of mould, you had the Gayle, Hayden, Lascelles, and this kind of core group of players that came through, with through the relegation with us, and then, or was signed in that summer that we went down, and just, he's always been there. He's been a leader. He's lost a bit of pace, and it probably is time to go. But all things come to an end, especially things in football. But he leaves with all the if he does go, which I probably think he will, leaves with all the support of the Geordies, and what can we say? He's been one of the best servants probably we've ever had. If you're going off work ethic, there was no drama off the pitch. He's like the perfect professional. You know what I mean? And we'll miss his kicking of the corner flags, which it's slowed down in recent years. But oh man, those are the days.
They were, yeah. And I guess the guy who stood in the stand who got it hitting the nether regions probably won't miss that celebration. Yeah, but anyway, and David Cook, I'm sad to say the magic hat got stolen off him by Bruno, mate. Sadly, David. So that's it. But yeah, I agree, and I was just delighted at Burnley. Even though I was in the corporate on that particular day with the Burnley fans, I did manage to give my own standing ovation to Matt Ritchie. I'm glad to see he got on in that game, because I think that's probably the last time we'll see him in a black and white shirt. Joe, onto this guy, Kieran Clark, and I guess following in the same vein, really, Kieran Clark, comes from the same kind of mould as Matt Ritchie. He was actually brought in by Rafa as somebody who was going to be a cover player. And I remember, because obviously at the time I was working with Rafa's team and got a little bit of good inside information at that time. And that was what he was brought in to do, to basically cover. But then he got thrust into the limelight because of an injury and suspensions to our centre halves. I've got to guess he never let us down. And I guess the saddest part about Kieran Clark is that the last thing we'll probably remember him for is that horrendous draw against Norwich, where he got sent off. And never really darkened the doorsteps of the first team again, which is great, because in the end of the day, it went on a long run. We stayed up, and the rest is history. But I just think it's a bit of a gut for him, I guess, as well. That's the way that his career at Newcastle finished. But again, a great servant. Now I had some pretty solid info, before the end of the season that there'd been a deal more or less done for him. So I guess it's just a case of where he'll end up.
Yeah, I think you're right, Steve. And again, you've hit the nail on the head there. Another solid steady away player. I think when we signed him, I was relatively impressed, because I think the odd occasion that I'd dragged myself to see Aston Villa, I was always impressed with the lad. I thought he was steady away. He was solid. He's got a left foot on him, which at the time was quite a commodity for centre halves. And he played a nice ball. He's a big, strong lad. He was relatively pacey. So, again, another player that's done more than a job for us. I don't think I was expecting him to play the amount of games he played for us. I certainly didn't, imagine he'd play as well as he did for us. But again, Steve, I think what Kieran Clark, he was never fashionable. He was never a Colaccini, was he? He was never a Philippe Albert. He was just a centre half that we might bring on. We'd signed a kid called Lascelles, and he was going to be the next big thing, of course. And, I think you're right. I think Clark was brought in almost, just to kind of bolster the squad up. So, listen, like I said about Ritchie, I think put him in a reasonable Championship side, and he'll do a reasonable job. I, like you, had heard, I think we'd all heard a long time ago that not only was he leaving, but the deal was actually done. I thought it had been announced by now. There was strong rumours, and particularly in this part of the world that I live in, that he was coming to Middlesbrough, and that deal was as good as done. It'll be interesting to see whether Steve Bruce fancies him, and whether he'll go down and do a job with Bruce. Whether he'd get a job in the Premier League, I'm not so sure. And even looking at some of those promoted clubs, I don't think Clark's up to Premier League standards. So it wouldn't surprise me if he goes to that kind of top 10, top 7 Championship level. But again, that Norwich game aside, of course, when he made that decision, and it looked like it was going to do the season for us at one point. He'll have my blessing, Steve. He's canny enough.
Yeah. I mean, Kieran Clark, Burnsie, have you heard anything about him and a potential move, or has that been quite quiet at your end?
Yeah, I heard a few weeks back it was some kind of USA move. I don't know if you heard something similar at your end, but I'd heard from a couple of people that it looked like he was going to go to America. Well, it hasn't materialised so far, although, our window's only been open a while, so there's still plenty of time. But I just think the thing with Clark is it's been quite a rapid drop-off in form, because he was always a steady Eddie. You know, he was always somebody that, although he wasn't hitting 9 and 10s out of 10 per week, he was still always maybe a 7 or, you know, the odd 8 or sometimes a 6. But just the last, I would say, 18 months, whenever he's played, he's been a bit calamitous. I think there was one of the goals last season when it was Dubravka and Clark in a bit of a mix-up. I forget, was it against City? Somebody left the ball, and I think it was Clark left the ball, and it just like went straight over his head, and it was like basic defending, like regardless of whether the keeper shouted or not, like you've got to go for that ball. And I just remember seeing that one, and then the Norwich game, where if we didn't have that happen, we might never have gotten £40 million or more, Joe Linton. So at least something good came out of that. But I do think it's time to go. But it's been a rapid decline because he was always all right, you know.
I think you're right, Ben, and I think for me, I don't know what you guys feel, but it almost seemed like Clark's decline it was exactly parallel to that of Lascelles. And I think the worse that Lascelles got and the more iffy and uncertain on the ball Lascelles got, instantly, you know, anxiety was infectious. And all of a sudden, Clark didn't look like a player. And I don't know whether there was a sense of, I'm the senior pro, I've been asked to look after this lad and he's having a nightmare. So I'm keeping an eye on the forwards, but I'm also having to keep an eye on him. So I think as a pairing, it got worse as opposed to, you know, something drastic happening with Clark.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, and partnerships are very important at centre half as well, and that's it. Sometimes someone comes in. I mean, we saw that back end of the season how Fabian Schär, who couldn't get in the team under Steve Bruce, suddenly alongside Dan Burn looks world class again. You know, it's that's just the way it works. Football is, as somebody once said, a funny old game. Okay, next up, Manquillo, and I didn't think that we'll be talking about Manquillo leaving, to be perfectly honest. And I think until we had the resurgence, I guess, in Emil Krafth's form, we wouldn't have been talking about this. But Kieran Trippier, a fully fit Kieran Trippier, and well done to him at Molineux, playing another 90 minutes there. He's now back to more or less full fitness. The England internationals might not have done anybody else any good, but getting Kieran Trippier some valuable minutes under his belt before pre-season commences again on the 1st of July. But yeah, I would say Kieran Trippier is a shoe-in as right back for us next season. I think Emil Krafth will probably be an able deputy. And, you know, it's just a case of whether Manquillo is going to be happy sitting on the bench or not. I mean, obviously, we've got an increase in substitutes next season. It means you have that opportunity to bring more players on, or whether he's going to seek a move, I guess. But is Manquillo somebody to keep a hold of, Joe, or do you think he could be on his way out?
Do you know what, Steve? I think yes, and I think you're right. I think had it not been for Emil Krafth's transformation under Eddie Howe, a fit Manquillo would have got in the side over Emil Krafth 100 times out of 100 for me. I remember when we signed him, and I'm thinking, "Oh, Rafa, no, we're not in this game, are we?" You know, thinking, of course, we'd have some money off our previous owners. And do you know what? I was really impressed with the lad. I don't think he's ever particularly let us down. I think the side always looked a lot more balanced with Manquillo in. I had much more faith in him going forward until, of course, we signed Kieran Trippier and seen what proper right backs are like. So I'd have kept him. I think, did we ever see, a fully fit Manquillo firing on all cylinders? Arguably not. I always got the sense that he'd come in, we'd have 2, 3, 4 decent games out of him, and then he'd be back out to the side again. And, we're tinkering with Murphy at right back and tinkering with the formation. And so I would certainly keep him, if to be a backup for Trippier. However, based on what Emil Krafth done towards the back end of the season, Manquillo must go because, one thing that Krafth did give us was he was available and he was fit. And when he was called on, he was there and he was ready. We didn't have to bring him off the bench. We didn't have to make him a bit part player and slowly bring his fitness up. Whether Manquillo had stay or not, thinking, I'm third, possibly fourth choice right back now. I'd rather go and spend the last 2 years of my career, go back to Spain, and kind of see my career out. But I've been impressed with him. So I think I'd like to know how much he was on. I'd like to know how much wages he's on and how much he's actually costing us. the squads have 3 right backs? Arguably not. Will Krafth be staying? You know, actually he looks like an international right back now. So is he going to be happier playing second fiddle, or would Manquillo be happier playing second fiddle? I don't know. It'll be an interesting one, but there's probably people above him. I hope we come on to Dwight Gayle. I really do. I could do an hour.
He's next. He is next.
Thank you, mate. Yeah, there'd certainly be other people before Manquillo that I'd get out of that squad.
Yeah, Alan Thompson says, Steve, is there going to be another 12 players going? We'll have no squad left. Talk about a clear out. Keith Patterson said on the Amigos 2 weeks ago that he'd written 16 players down that he would chuck out. Yeah. So, I mean, look, we're not going to chuck 16 players out, but I think there will be a clear out of sorts, Alan. But I don't think we'll clear people out until we'll get people in. But Ben, yeah, Manquillo.
Yeah, I think up until this season, I think if you asked me, like maybe last summer, I would have been all over, you know, Manquillo staying and Krafth getting shipped out. But the turnaround, what Krafth's produced, especially I would say since Christmas onwards, that's an international right back. That's somebody that knows how to defend, when to bomb forward. He's not bad at crossing, and he's just basically pushed Manquillo aside. You know, it's not necessarily his fault. He's had a lot of injury problems, as Joe touched on, and I think that's always going to be an issue. If you can't stay fit, same in any position, in any team, someone's always going to take your place. And I think that's what's happened. There was opportunities for Manquillo this season when he just wasn't there. He wasn't fit. So Krafth ended up getting the nod. And before you know it, he's turned things around. So, yeah, I totally agree. I think he's another one that's probably, I'd say we can't have 3 right backs. So I think he would have to make the cut. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to, as I say, the increase in substitutions is going to make things slightly easier for the manager, Eddie Howe. But, you know, again, there still needs to be a clear out. And, you know, again, another person who we need to talk about, and Joe quite rightly mentioned him, is Dwight Gayle. I mean, look, Dwight Gayle, there's something not right about this whole situation. Rumours of something that went on at an event at the club, and that's the reason he's never really featured, because the club never really forgive him for that. It's an allegation. I don't know whether anything, and that's true. However, always included in squads, always on the bench, rarely used. And then the bizarre situation last summer when we were all expecting him to get peddled and put out the door and, you know, not see the light of day of Newcastle again. And he gets a new contract. And then we're all scratching our heads thinking, why give him a new contract? And then, of course, it's left to speculation on social media. We're all going, well, is it because when we sell him, we're going to get a bit more money for him and etc. And then, no, we have another season, half a season more or less under Steve Bruce, then half a season under Eddie Howe. New manager comes in, you think he's going to see the potential in the kid. He's going to be able to say, well, this guy can get us the goals in the Premier League to keep us up. And again, another manager comes in, and this is the worrying thing, comes in and goes, nah, not for me, no chance. And he's left to bit part appearances. Whenever he warms up, he looks as if he's part of the squad. It doesn't seem there's any problems. He's, you know, everyone gets on with him. He's having a laugh. He's part of the atmosphere. He went around the pitch at the end of the season. I just do not understand what the situation is and the conundrum is with the guy. Surely to God, Joe, when the season kicks off in August, Dwight Gayle won't be a Newcastle player.
We've been saying that for 4 years. Do you know what? There's a player in there. There's definitely a footballer there. He's proved that. All right, he maybe hasn't proved it at Premier League level, but certainly in terms of the Championship, if you look at his goal scoring record, not only for Newcastle, but when he was playing for West Brom, you can see why some of those teams are allegedly looking at him. You know, the Middlesbroughs of this world who might struggle to score goals, at times. There's definitely a footballer in there who knows where the back of the net is. Quite why on earth he hasn't done it for Newcastle, I have absolutely no idea. And to be honest, he hasn't even looked close. I mean, we signed Chris Wood there, and yes, arguably in terms of stature and style of play, you know, they're very, very different players. However, if we were looking for a like for like, Callum Wilson-esque type, surely it would have been Dwight Gayle that would have come on. And lots of other players we've just been talking about, people like Emil Krafth, for example, Eddie Howe, Joe Linton, Eddie Howe gave them a chance. Eddie Howe thought, right, I'm going to have a look at these guys and I'm going to put some faith behind them. The one lad he didn't put any faith in and the one lad he didn't have a look at was Dwight Gayle. And even when Callum Wilson, we went through that spell where we weren't scoring, we were scraping 1-0s, which was grand, but, we could have done with a few more. And yet still Gayle was not called upon. And that makes me wonder if there's something seriously wrong somewhere. As you say, Steve, I mean, unless you know different guys, but I hear that he trains well. He appears to be fit. He never appears to be injured to the point that he can't play. You're looking at the bench. We make all sorts of substitutions, fiddling about with the forward line, putting Sam Maximin up front, putting Murphy up front at times. And Gale's just sat there, collecting his money. So whether it was a big gamble, Steve, in terms of actually, if we give him a new contract, we'll command a transfer fee, and that transfer never came off. But if he's on the wages that we're led to believe he's on, I tell you what, it was a massive gamble and one that hasn't particularly worked out. So would I see him go? Absolutely. Does he need to go? Does he need to be the first one out the door as far as I'm concerned? Yes, I think for the football club and for Dwight Gayle. Will he be here next season? We've been saying it for 2 years. We shall see.
Yeah, Dwight Gayle, it is a strange one, isn't it, Ben? I mean, over the last few years, just not really had a look in. Yeah,
that's it. And just to rewind it back a bit, when you're talking about why was he given the contract? Well, it's two words for that. Mike Ashley. At no other club would that player in that form of getting a 3-year deal at that age. It was nonsense. But the reason behind it is, and this is truly what I believe, is that it is cheaper to sign Dwight Gayle on a extension of 3 years than it is to let him go and put that money into signing a better player, improving the squad. Classic Ashley. What was the cheaper option? Did he want to scour the market for a top-class striker to replace Gayle, or was it easier just to hand out a willy-nilly 3-year extension? Probably not on the biggest of wages. And Gale's lapped that up. It suited Ashley. He didn't know if he was selling the club or not. That's prime Ashley. I don't think that would have happened in any other club. But just to touch on his form as well, I think what you hear all the time is with Gayle is that he's a great finisher. Well, he definitely is in the Championship, but in the Premiership, that's never been the case, and the stats will back that up. I've had arguments with people before online and saying like, Gayle should be playing, he'd score. Well, actually, the stats say that he actually wouldn't. There was that season when we first got promoted, and he played most of the season up front. I think, was he playing with Hosselu coming in and out? I can't remember now, but he basically played a lot of games pretty much up front for the entire season. I think he only scored four goals or something like that over the whole season. So that shows you that, I mean, we might not have created that much for him, but is he strong enough? Like Joe said, when Callum Wilson was out, in a lot of people's minds, he might have seemed like the perfect player to bring in. But is he as strong as Wilson? Is he as quick? Probably not. Maybe he's flattest to deceive. I think he's lost that explosive pace. So I think if you haven't got the strength and you haven't got the pace, then you're going to struggle to get in the positions that you might need to show off your finishing, if you have got that. So, yeah, I think he's lacking. And I think time's run out for Gayle.
Yeah, I would agree. The bid for Derby County has just been withdrawn. Mike Ashley, that's breaking news. I'm sure will be rubbing his hands with glee at that and ready to step in. But back with the transfer chat at Newcastle, we're discussing outgoings for the first half of the show. One Longstaff committed to a new contract, another Longstaff still on the books, Joe. What does the future hold for Matty, in your opinion?
Nice lad, cracking family, I'm led to believe. Sean's got his new deal. I think this lad was an absolute victim of whatever it was that Steve Bruce was doing. Steve, how can we go from, and I was there, it was my 40th birthday, and so I only just remember, but that goal he scored against Manchester United, and you're thinking, hey, we found one, we've got one. He can sit alongside his brother that can play in the midfield for years. And then Steve Bruce happened to that family and particularly to Matty. And, you know, at the time, people were actually saying, you know, this lad's better than his brother. This is the lad that needs to be in the midfield, not Sean. And you're thinking, hey, great. Wasn't fancied at all for whatever reason. And I know there's lots of rumours out there, and lots of kind of stories around kind of what happened with the Longstaffs and the previous regime. But in terms of a footballer, Steve, yeah, he was quick. He would stick his foot in. He was what we needed. It was that energy. We've watched John Joe Shelby for years saying, how he made it. You know, his legs, he was playing on one leg for half the time. And yet Matty was there, and Matty had the dynamo. And then off he's gone to some loans. I was actually looking forward to, you know, I was keeping an eye on him when he went up to Scotland, thinking, you know, that might be the making of him. Didn't quite happen for him. So again, you know, you're talking about Bruno, you're talking about Joe Linton. If we're signing players like Paqueta, for example, Joe Willock's already there, you know. Does Matty, Sean, of course, got his new contract. Does Matty Longstaff have a place? Will he get a game? I don't think so, Steve. And I think your heart telling you one thing, it's my club. You know, the three, we do absolutely anything to play for Newcastle. But if I was a professional footballer with 6 players ahead of me, I think I'd be away. And do you know what? If he goes away and he sticks 2 fingers up to the club and he sticks 2 fingers up to Bruce and Ashley and goes on to play for England, good luck to the lad.
Yeah, Matty Longstaff arrived on the scene, Ben, with a bang, didn't he? I mean, the winner against Manchester United, and Steve Bruce bigging him up, and local lad, and you know the whole crowd got behind him. It was a real buzz. It was a buzz because, let's face it, we weren't getting anything else when we were going to the game apart from the odd ASM run, which I think we probably got up and down once or twice in a game under Bruce and Ashley. But Matty really gave us a bit of hope, and then it burst. It seemed to burst, didn't it? The balloon seemed to burst, and then there was a fallout between him and both brothers. Yeah,
it just like you say, it was exactly what we needed. It was the pick me up, you know, in the dark days. A local lad with he had a bit more, I would say, a little bit more pace than Sean. He looked a little bit more sprightly. You know, Sean's quite leggy, and he just looked like he could really make it. But then, for whatever reason, whether it was declining a loan, keeping him here, and then not playing him, I think he almost missed a year because of that. Just couldn't get a look in, not making the squads, you know. And everyone was saying, why didn't he just send him out on loan? And that was all down to Bruce. And that goes deeper. That's like the structure of the club. And you know, if Shola was in charge of that, you think like, what's happening here? You know, but that's a wider issue that they could have maybe been approached a bit better. But I'd heard a whisper that he won't be coming back, won't be playing for the club again. And if that is the case, then like you guys have just said, I wish him all the best. And I think he's cracked League 2. Is League 2 he was in, was it, or League 1? League 2?
Yeah, League 2, yeah.
Yeah, so he's cracked that. Maybe he's have a crack at League 1 and then maybe move up to the Championship. I honestly could see him week in, week out in the Championship. He's got that terrier, like David Batty kind of thing going on. Scores the odd screamer. I just think he's got a lot of qualities, and you know for a fact he'll train hard. He's got that work ethic. He's a little bit on the small side, but you know he can make up for that with other things. You know, height doesn't make a player. So I think if he can just get his head down, but he's got to move for his own sake. It must be heart-wrenching to move away from your boyhood club when we're just about to lift off. But he's got to think about it in a sensible manner, because if he sticks about or wants to see out this remainder of the contract, I think it might be only 1 year anyway, is it? I'm not sure what's left.
I'm not sure on that, but I get where you're coming from, and I think the good thing about Eddie Howe is he's shown already that he can develop players, he can help players, he can bring the best out in players. We've seen it with Joe Ellington, we've seen it with Krafth, and those 2 players in particular are a hallmark of what Eddie Howe can do. And you know, I personally think that, you know, if Matty Longstaff, as you say, could go out on loan maybe and improve and come back and show that he wants to stay and he wants to do stuff, then I think it worked. Sean Longstaff was almost ruined by Steve Bruce. A, because he ran him into the ground. B, he brought him back too early from injury. And C, he continued to play him alongside Shelby, who either didn't like playing with him or couldn't play with him. I couldn't decide which. And I think the fact that we saw the best coming out of Sean Longstaff in a long while at the back end of the season again shows what Howe can do. So I think he'll work with him. We're going to continue the outgoings. I am going to go for the ad break now. Spider Miner, worldwide coverage of one of our main sponsors. It's the only cryptocurrency miner that can mine 5 different cryptocurrencies at the same time whilst using virtually no energy. And it's VPN protected. Buy yours now at www.miner.spidervpn.org. Thanks to skipsandbins.com too. Telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com. Website www.skipsandbins.com. Easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks to L&G Family Funeral Directors 01913897245. And a Garden of Healing Dispensary, CBD Hemp and Cannabinoid Specialists, www.thegohd.com. Thanks to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, Newcastle, and the guys who run our website, NUFCmatters.com. And thanks to Clearkai, meet the new game over screen, drop into a Clearrun device near you, available on Apple Store, Google Play, and clearrun.game. Thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the video side of things. If you want to subscribe, hit the Newcastle Legends logo in the bottom right-hand corner and you can subscribe for free. We do 7 shows a week, even during the close season. Hit the thumb up under the video to like, which helps us out. It's very important and it's free. Click share to your social media and drop into the comments box to speak to like-minded Newcastle fans or to pose a question. Hit the podcast up on iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, and the rest. It goes up 24 hours after the show has been broadcast on YouTube. And if you want to become a member, well, this is the week to do it. We have 1 week to go until the big draw for a season ticket or the cash equivalent of £1,000, kindly donated by qtechshop.co.uk. What do you get for your £25 to join the NUFC Matters cult? You get a pen, you get a cup, you get a scarf, a membership card, but most importantly, this week, you get entered into that draw. £25 opportunity to potentially win a season ticket or £1,000. You can get your membership part of the channel by going over this QR code on your smartphone or going to NUFC Matters and clicking shop and looking for the membership. That's all you've got to do, but do not miss out. It's a great opportunity, especially if you are after a season ticket or the cash equivalent. As a subscriber, you get a free car sticker. Just email john@nufcmatters.com. Don't forget, we are supporting the food bank on here. £70,000 we have raised on this channel in 2 years for the food bank. So please continue to do your best and leave some money via NUFC fans, foodbank.co.uk. The virtual matchday bucket is there 365 days of the year. Thank you to everybody who has supported our cry for help with the food bank. Don't forget, end of season due, 24th of June at Shearer's Bar. Tickets are £12. Come and see Mick Lowes and Andy Griffin. First time Andy's done a talking. It's going to be a cracking night. And a lot of the NUFC Matters crew will be there. If you want to get yourself along, then get your tickets from nufcmatters.com. Well worth coming along. Okay, next up on the outgoings, let's talk this guy, Jacob Murphy. Got to be honest, I personally think Jacob Murphy is one of those players that Eddie Howe can develop, Joe. I think there's been an opportunity there for him, and I think he's taken it with both hands. He hasn't featured in every game, but when he's come on, he hasn't let us down. I generally feel there's a player in there, and I think Eddie Howe can get the best out of him. I'm not sure he'll go, but you never know.
I think in terms of the squad, Steve, I mean, yeah, I like the lad. I really do. If he could finish, he'd be worth 240 million. I genuinely think, he gets himself in some fantastic positions. He's versatile. He's quick. He loves the club. He's a fan. I think it's quite nice, particularly as you were saying, we've got 5 substitutes next season. And I think these are the type of lads that could actually come on. They've got a bit of legs, if one guy's getting tired, they can come on. He's the absolute, foil for St. Maximin. Whenever Maximin's had enough after 70 minutes, it's Murphy that comes on and puts the legs back in. I think there's a player in there, and I think Howe likes him. Eddie Howe, from when you hear him on, interviews, post-match and some of the pre-match comments, he's got a lot of time for Jacob Murphy. He gets a reasonable reception off the fans when he comes on. And as I say, if they can do something with him over the summer in terms of his finishing and what to do when he actually gets inside the box, I think there's a player in there. So I wouldn't be in any rush whatsoever. And I think particularly if you're thinking about players like Matt Ritchie potentially moving on, I think Murphy's position in the squad actually solidifies. I think he actually cements his place in the squad as opposed to thinking, well, he'll go as well as all the others that we've mentioned. So he's a keeper for me.
Okay, what's your take on Murphy? Would you keep him, Ben?
Yeah, I really like his passion and the fact that he supports us. And I think sometimes we forget that when they did his announcement video and all of his past was revealed with his twin brother and how they supported us, but like we're from the area. But I love that family connection what they have, and the local connection, even though they're not particularly from the area. I think that's fantastic, and you can see it in the photos. He's got the biggest smile. He's always pulling the craziest faces. The passion's there. He clearly loves playing for us. But as Joe said there, he gets into good positions. But if we want to go up a level, he's going to have to either improve that finishing or maybe look to play elsewhere, because when you're playing against the top teams, you can't miss these type of chances. Some of them are bordering on sitters. A lot of them go wide of the post, but he just needs to. If he can own that, he'll be spot on. But he's just not quite hitting that level for me. But I do like him, and I would love for it to work for him up here. But he just needs to fine tune that finish, and if he does, he had a great spell. I think it was under Bruce still, where he was like playing at right back a bit, and he did a good few weeks there. Showing his versatility. And then under Howard, he kind of stepped back a bit, but then came in towards the end of the season, as a replacement for Alan when he wasn't playing, and Fraser. And he's a great squad player. He's what you need. But if that finishing's not there, he will move on, whether it's this summer or next, because, we need that. We can't have someone who keeps missing a lot of chances, and he does miss a lot of chances. So, yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, okay. We'll finish up on the outgoings with two players, I guess, who have split opinions sometimes with supporters, and one of them is this guy, ASM. The other guy is Almiron. Two players who have been good servants in the bad times. Almiron scored 2 cracking goals for his country the other day. ASM, certainly we've discussed on this platform before, played in those last couple of games. We saw flashes of a new side to ASM. He was listening to what Eddie Howard told him. He was tracking back. He was releasing the ball earlier, and there seemed to be a different ASM on display against Arsenal and Burnley. So those two players, I guess the question I'm going to ask Joe to both of you is, if an offer comes in, would Newcastle consider it? Or do you think those are the players that we should be trying to potentially build around now? I mean, Steve Corbett interestingly makes this point. He says, come on, guys. You guys are big enough players that will keep us in the bottom half of the table. Aim higher, boys. We need top half players. I get Steve's point, but let's face it, we haven't got any European football to offer. That's going to make a big difference to us trying to sign the Darwin Núñez's of this world and the Haalands. They're going to clubs that are in Europe. They're not going to come to us. We need to really focus on where we're at the moment and try to persuade players with potential, I guess, to come, and then we can get these other players out. But ASM and Almiron, do you think they would be here next season and benefit? Do you think we would benefit from having them?
Yeah, I think just picking up on that comment as well, Steve. I mean, without sounding like another deluded Newcastle fan, but don't forget if we'd have had that form that we showed in the last half of the season, all season, we'd have finished second, if not top, wouldn't we? So actually, in terms of where we aiming at here, essentially for the latter half of the season, we've had a top 4 side. So that's testament to the coaching staff, of course. Yes, of course, we need to improve our squad. And Ben, this is where I get my Twitter love from, because I'd let Sam Maximin go tomorrow. Steve, I think, in the last 2 games, he maybe stayed on his feet a bit more and passed the ball twice. But how many more times for me personally, how many more chances do we give this guy? I understand that he gets people excited. I understand the flair. I understand all of that. He was essentially playing in a crap side, don't forget. And if we're thinking about the Paquetas of this world, if you're thinking about the Diabys of this world, Sam Maximin's got two very, very clear choices for me. He can either pack his bag and take his ego somewhere else, and you won't hear from him ever again, or this is his last chance saloon. And yes, it is exciting to think if we can get a tune out of him, if we can get him on song, and we can have someone like Diaby on the other side, all of a sudden we've got a fantastic attack, by the way. Does he do it enough? Absolutely not. Does he infuriate me every single minute of every game? Does he do enough to warrant almost this superstar, this icon status that people put him on? I don't see it, Steve. I really don't. And I know we spend more time, Steve Hasty will vouch for it, we spend more time at half-time and at full-time every week saying, where is he? What's he done? Is he in the right position? I don't know where else we'd play him. Is he a centre-forward? No. But if Eddie Howe's going to change this ethos to this flair, attacking, Keegan-esque, let's go for it, then yeah, I guess he's going to stay. He's going to have to learn to pass the ball. He's going to have to learn to cross the ball. He's going to have to learn to stop just throwing his hands up in the air when he loses it and putting us in some really difficult positions. You can tell I'm a fan, can't you? So yeah, listen. I think your question was, would we listen to offers for him? Of course. If someone wants to offer us 50 million for him, of course you'd listen to it. Why would you not? And it'd be a real test of how much, because if he tests our patience, I'm almost certain he tests Eddie Howe's patience as well. And if we're going to get more players in who can sell shirts, maybe Sam Maximin's the one that I would let go. In terms of Miggy, I could probably repeat what I've just said. Again, I had massive high hopes for this lad. We've never, ever been able to find him a position, let's be honest. That goal against Crystal Palace, was worth the admission fee alone. He scored twice for Paraguay in the midweek. So there's definitely a player in there as well. But again, where do you play him? What do you do with him? And if someone offers us 20 million, do you take it and invest it somewhere else? So there's an argument for them both staying. I'm going to sit right on the fence here. I'm going to get a splinter up my arse here. There's an argument for them both staying, but there's also an argument to say, do you know what? If someone wants to take them off our hands, let's reinvest it somewhere else. Again, depends what Eddie Howe wants to do for me. Did I answer you?
You did, yeah. Now, and Thompson says, come on, guys. It's spot on, Joe. He says if he could finish talking about Murphy. He says, candidate at Barn Door. He says, I like Cheryl Cole, but you never called to take me out. Map the grid, get rid, he says. That you need to get that in the back of your top, Alan.
Very good.
ASM and Miggy. Rachel says, I would keep both ASM and Miggy, which seems to be the consensus of most of the chat. Ben, would you?
Right, starting with Alan. The thing what he's missing is consistency. He's got that talent. We've seen it in pretty much every goal he's scored is like a belter. Like the guy just doesn't do tap-ins. It's always dropping the shoulder, beating 2 or 3 men, whipping it in. He's fantastic. And like Joe said, he gets asses off seats. You know what I mean? But it's that consistency. Unless something happens with that, this guy isn't a kid anymore. This guy's 25, maybe coming up 26. I don't know his exact age, but I think he's about 25. It's time to, if you want to get in the France squad, you're going to have to knuckle down and do this week in, week out. There was a period after Christmas, maybe till around Easter, when he wasn't just average. The guy was woeful. The guy was absolutely woeful. Every ball into the box seemed to hit the first man. He was slipping and sliding all over. His head was down. He was greedy. He was passing when he shouldn't pass and shooting when he shouldn't shoot. And the whole thing it was car crash TV. Whether you were watching it on telly or watching it at the match, people were literally ripping the hair out, smashing the screens. It got that bad. The last few games of the season, it seemed to improve. The penny dropped. He was passing it when he should pass, and he was shooting when he should shoot. And if he can do that more often, we already know he's got the talent, he's got the quality, but it's all about the decision making. And like you touched on, Steve, as well. It's like if you've got the ego and the kind of the whole kind of aura about you that you are a bit special, that you're going to have to show that. Because otherwise, it's not it's not going to come across very well if you're playing extremely average. But on the flip side, you're going down the route of you want to be playing with these top players. And his stats actually for dribbles, I think over the last 3 or 4 years, have shown he's the best dribbler in Europe. He was, the season we signed him, he had the highest dribble rate in Europe, successful dribbles. And then he's just had the same stat this season as well. So clearly he's got talent, but is the end product there? Is he getting as many goals or assists as he should? Probably not. So let's just see, but I definitely keep him. And just a quick one on Miggy. Yeah, I definitely keep him too. I think he's kind of really improved. You can see it in the international side. He's looking like a bit of a player. Maybe just needed that arm around him and a bit of how magic. But he's twice the player he was under Bruce. So as long as he can keep coming on, doing these cameos, he seems pretty settled. His agent said this week that he was happy at the best club in the world. So like we said at the start of the show, we can't get rid of everybody. We're going to have to keep some players. So let's keep him.
Yeah,
I've got a visitor. Sorry, guys.
Go for it. We're going to move on anyway to players. Well, first of all, just want to wish all the best to this young man who's found a new club, Lewis Cass. He turned down the offer of a contract extension to St James's Park in favour of making a permanent move to Port Vale. The 22-year-old made a really good impression when he was down there on loan last season. A serious ankle injury saw him return to Tyneside, of course, in the January transfer window. But in his absence, Port Vale were promoted to League One via the playoffs, and they have now come back to St James's Park, and they've managed to get Cass on extended terms because he's returned to full fitness. So we wish Lewis Cass all the best, and let's hope he does well down there. Okay, incomings. We've got 15 minutes left, and we've got a few questions. So I will do the few of the questions in there. A lot of people talking about Botman. Paul says, "Hi guys, I'm hearing Lille have upped the price to 36 million for Botman after agreeing 30 million with us." He says it's time to walk away from this deal now, because I think the club are extracting the urine. And hi, John Walker, Newcastle United up to 36 million. Lots of people reporting on that. Fabrizio Romano, obviously well-known source on Twitter, says Newcastle now hope to get the deal done this week for Ekitike after new contact was made with his agent. Talks on player side will continue with all parties now confident again. And Gary reckons that the deal will be done this week. Again, just citing what Fabrizio Romano said. So, Joe, let's talk about those two players. We've spoken about them over the last couple of weeks since we started doing the show. And, I mean, some people feel that this is now starting to become a bit of a nightmare. It's becoming, it's dragging on. The transfer window's just open, for God's sake. Ekitike has been playing in international football. He pulled his hamstring, so of course we had hamstring gate. Will this stop the deal? Will Newcastle be able to get him cheaper? And then we've had, the whole Botman saga, because it was in January. It feels like it's been going on for 6 months. So we've got two situations here. If you were a betting man, Joe, and you are Toon Tipster, would you say we're going to get these two, in Pardew's words, over the line?
47 minutes I lasted. I'm going to get dog's abuse for mentioning these two now.
Do you know what? I'll put your favourite photo up of Botman as well after fighting. Here we go.
There he is. Deal done. Look, deal done. We said it weeks ago. Right, start with Hugo. Would a hamstring injury stop a multi-million-pound transfer for a 22-year-old? I don't hear the extent of the injury being absolutely career-threatening. So, if he's tweaked the muscle after a long season, would that be enough for us to not sign him? I don't think so, Steve. I've heard nothing to suggest that this deal won't go through. I think last time we spoke on this show last week, I think everyone was confident. Things seem to be moving in the right direction. Why would we not? I'm sure that we were led to believe the offer for the player was done. We were led to believe that even the personal terms had been agreed. And like we keep saying, all right, we've signed Matty Target, fair enough, but nobody's around. Eddie Howe's still on holiday. These lads are playing international football, as you say. The market's been open for 15 minutes. I'm sure Dan Ashworth's got a role to play in all of this now with his new role. He'll just be unpacking his boxes in his new office. So for me, I'm trying not to panic. I think the really, really interesting thing for Newcastle fans, though, and I know we get it every single season, year on year, but you're reading that much stuff. You know, you talk there about Sven Botman's transfer fee, Lille now, demanding a little bit more money. I was reading in one of the publications yesterday that apparently Dan Ashworth had said we'll up it to 46 million because we want to sign him. So again, who are you listening to? Who's right? Who's wrong? And until we see him in that black and white shirt, then we can celebrate. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm confident we're in for two of Europe's top young players. So I'm just enjoying that at the moment, you know. He was going to Milan. Maldini didn't fancy him. Next thing you know, he's going to PSG. All of a sudden, they're changing their manager. So who knows? As far as I'm concerned, I'm sure that the money's there, the offers are made, you know, that we'll be selling the club, and they'll come when the dust settled on their international duty. So I'd sign the pair of them. I've been saying about Sven Botman, you know, since we were first linked with him in December last year. This is the one I'd go for. I'd follow it up and I'd break the bank. And the fact that Dan Ashworth went out, to watch him play for Holland for 45 minutes, I think it speaks volumes. It looks like we're making a fuss of these players. And as I said, you know, he just needs to sign and we can get on with enjoying watching him play.
Now, I didn't see the team sheets for that, but you just because you mentioned that, Joe, somebody suggested on last night's programme with Ben Jacobs that he wasn't there to watch Botman. He was there to watch his son, who was playing for the Welsh team. I don't know whether I haven't seen the team sheets. Is that true? I don't know.
Yeah, it was. He was. He didn't get off the bench though. He was on the bench.
Okay, so that's interesting. So that was true. And I didn't get the feeling it was a malicious comment by somebody.
With one stone. That's what he's done. He's killed two birds with one stone.
Yeah. Okay. Well, same question to you, Burnsie. I mean, these two, you know, have been mentioned for so long now. It almost feels like they're part of the family. You know what I mean? But it's not getting. We're not getting any further forward as yet.
No.
Do you think there's big news imminent?
I would like to think so, especially on Ekitike. It feels like that one. See, there's no one else, as far as we're aware, that's really in for him. I think we're kind of the only ones willing to pay that amount for someone so young. We're paying for the potential there, and I don't think we have the competition that we've had for Botman with Ekitike. But with Botman as well, if Lille are squeezing us, you can see why they are, because they know we're rich. You know, regardless of FFP, you know, they know we've got money. And the thing as well, because this is the second time we've approached Botman, January and now, they know we're actually really, really interested in him. So if they have cranked it up at the last second, because everything was agreed, I think we'd all heard that. Everything was agreed. The fee was agreed. The structure was agreed. You know, it's rumoured to be just discussing personal terms with Ashworth. And then that was it. It was going to be today, tomorrow, Wednesday, whenever. But if they have jacked the price up a bit, then it's because they know we absolutely, I wouldn't say desperate for him, but they know we're very keen because we've approached him in 2 windows. So basically, we're either going to have to pay the extra 6 million, or don't, and then move on. I've heard the Frankfurt defender, Ndika. I think he would be the next on the list if we don't go for Botman. He has a release clause. I don't know if that's 20 million, 25 million, but I'm led to believe that he would be the next one on the list if we don't go for Sven. So we'll see how it pans out, because he's a canny player too. Okay. Obviously played in the European Cup final this summer. Looks a lot pacier than Botman. Might not quite have the reading of the game or the strength, but definitely looks like and he can fill in at left back too, which is good. So we'll goes. Ekitike, hopefully a bit more positive, because the hamstring injury was not as serious as they thought it was. So he was actually on the bench yesterday for this the Toulon final, and he actually ran onto the pitch at the end. So if he's got enough legs to sprint, you know, to the halfway line and celebrate with his teammates, then I think he'll be all right for our medical.
Yeah, no, I agree. I am going to ask one question. Rich Joblin's asked it. He just says, look, and we asked this to Sean last week. He says, where does Burnsie get his information from? And look, I know you are, like me on Twitter, you can be divisive. We discussed this before we came on. Just assess why you've come out over the years and try to give people your view on what's happening. Tell us a little bit about it.
I do it like, say, it's not to gain followers. The followers is a byproduct of running an account that people enjoy. If people enjoy what you write, you've found it over the years with your own account in YouTube. If people enjoy what the content you put out, they'll follow. But why I do it, like, I don't want my account just to be about giving snippets of information. So I always try to put like my own thoughts and feelings, like little reviews of games, player ratings, and transfer stuff. I love all that. But in regards to the snippets of info, like, I share them because I'd like to hear them, and I like to hear the other people that that do it. The Looney Tune, Oscar, Sean. I look for their tweets. They haven't getting everything right. I haven't getting everything right, but clearly there's a select few of people that seem to just want to bring everybody down, and these are guys, you don't know anything, and it's like, well, that's fine. Just, you don't have to follow anyone. You don't have to be abusive. You could just not follow. Well,
that's it. And like I said at the start of the program, Burnsie, it's all about opinions. Newcastle United is your club. It's our club. It's everybody's club, and we can all have an opinion. So let's have an opinion on this guy, Lucas Paqueta. I mean, look, this one again is something which I always felt it was just a media story drummed up by the fact that he's best pals with bloody Bruno, Joe. I just don't really see any legs in this. But unfortunately, I think the story's grown legs because of his connection with Bruno, because it's been in the paper. I still don't think we're generally interested in bringing this guy in. I think midfield we could probably do with somebody, but it's not a necessity. We need a 20-goal striker. We need somebody who's going to bang the ball in the back of the net. We needed somebody to come in at left back, and we've managed to sign Target on a permanent deal now. We need to break the bank and bring that centre forward in. We'll get a midfielder, great, but is Paqueta on the radar, do you think?
I wonder if this goes in the category, Steve. If you think about what Murdad said in terms of, it's got to be right for the club, it's got to be right for the squad. We will be working within a budget. However, if certain players become available, we'll be in the market for them. And I agree. I'd be astounded looking at the squad that we've got and the positions that we need to fill. If this guy is at the top of that list, it will say a hell of a lot about Eddie Howe and a hell of a lot about what his thoughts are in terms of next season's tactics, particularly going forward. But why would you not be in for him? I'm quite intrigued with this one in terms of, let's have our centre half. We're still on for the goalkeeper. We've not heard anything to the contrary. We're still on for Hugo. Diaby, the Diaby rumour doesn't go away. And then maybe they can ask PIF if they've got a spare 60 million down the sofa, and we'll bring Paqueta in as well. So I think this is on the list of let's do what we need to do first. And if this is still going on, back end of July, heading into August, I don't know when the window closes, but why not? Why not throw a 50 million for him and let him join the party? Supposedly a fantastic footballer. Interestingly, we've been crying out for a long time, haven't we? We talked about that number 10. There was a comment earlier about Miggy playing number 10 for Paraguay. We've never used him in that way, and particularly with Eddie Howe's 4-3-3, you don't necessarily see where that number 10 or that player who goes in the hole would play. But I tell you what, if you had the opportunity to sign him, why would you not? So this might be the signing that just gets us excited after we've done our proper business.
Yeah, I would say so as well. Paqueta, Ben, I mean, I'd love to see him at the club, but I just, my gut instinct is that this has just been all, it's dramatization from what happened on Twitter, and then photographs of him in Bruno's back garden didn't help.
It's been a big tease.
Yes. Yeah.
This one, I don't know. I've not heard anything about this one. I haven't really heard any whispers that I would, like to put out there. But the thing, what I've noticed, if we do get Bruno, Lucas Paqueta, you're getting kind of a 2-in-1 player. You're getting a very good player by his own standard. But when he's teamed up with Bruno, they're almost telepathic. Now, I stayed up late couple of times recently watching a couple of Brazil games before the season ended, and the link-up play between these two, I hadn't seen them link up at Lyon, So I can't really comment about that. I've watched some clips afterwards. I've seen the goals and the assists. But when I was watching them live for Brazil, I was thinking, these guys are telepathic. Like they knew exactly where each other was going to be. They were assisting each other. Bruno assisted Paqueta. I think the reverse happened as well for Bruno's goal. I'm sure Paqueta assisted Bruno. And I was watching it thinking, it's almost like a 2-in-1. You're getting a great player, but also you're getting that advantage of having two players on the pitch that are going to be having that telepathic link up. And for me, that's really exciting. Then, the best friends, that's great. But the fact that they actually click on the pitch, that's incredible. So if we can utilize that, I'm all for it. But price-wise, I think you'd have to do a structured deal for that one. You'd have to do, 6 installments of 10 million or something. I don't think we'd ever lash 60 million straight on him. I just couldn't see that.
Plenty of positivity in the chat. That's what I like to see. And look, those people who were slightly negative, look, everyone's entitled to their opinion, but that isn't what this show is about. This isn't a show where we're giving an expert's opinion. This show is conjecture, it's discussion, and it's a mature adult discussion between three like-minded Newcastle fans. And the numbers suggest that people enjoy it. Over 700 watching live. I think that we are doing the right thing to do these kind of shows. And it's great. We enjoy it. And it's just like being down the pub, but we haven't got a drink. We're sitting having a bit crack. I am gonna take a couple of these questions. Sefton Mag says, even and all, who would you like to be our first game of the season to be against? Joe?
Tottenham away, win 6-0.
Ben?
Everton at St. James's Park, smash them.
Okay, I've said this, I've answered this. I think we did it with Mick Lowe's. I'd like to see Newcastle play Liverpool or Man City, first game of the season at home. And I think it's always a good time to play them 100%. I think if you play them at the start, it gives you a real good chance. Jack Sparrow says, lads, on the topic of 5 subs next year, do you think that when that decision was made, do you think the club had to change plans on getting more people in this summer for a better bench? Great question, Jack. Joe, what do you think about that?
Yeah, it is. It's a fantastic question. I'm sure it comes into people's thoughts. And if we're going to sign all of the players that we've mentioned tonight, some of them are naturally going to have to sit on the bench because we've only got 11 spaces. Would they be happy doing that? I'm not so sure. So, yeah, maybe that's where you have to start to think about the Murphys of this world, the Longstaffs of this world, and, Joe Willock et al. It'd be nice to think we could have 25 Brazilian internationals in our squad, but they wouldn't be very happy and they wouldn't sit on the bench in January. So, yeah, I'm sure some players who we might think were leaving will probably end up sticking around purely because of the way that the benches are going to work.
Okay, what about you, Ben? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think maybe if we hadn't had the takeover, I would have been a bit more like, oh, yeah, because you're thinking, who are the 5 that we could possibly bring off the bench? Last season before, January, there wasn't that many options. But now, with the summer, I think, yeah, it's a great thing. We can get more top players on the pitch. Although I do honestly think it favours the bigger clubs and the better teams. You got to think. Let's look at Man City and Norwich, who's just gone down. Man City's 5 players are going to be a hell of a lot different than Norwich's 5 players. It's like half a team. It's like you can essentially switch half the team out. And if that quality, if that golfing class is there like that, I don't know. I think you could see, real swings in games, especially towards the end. You've got the fresh legs, but now you've got more fresh legs. I just think you've got to be careful with it. But I think, for us personally, I think if we're getting the better players in, you want to see more of them on the pitch. But I don't know whether that's going to play in answer the question. I don't know whether that would play in a factor of, our signings this summer. I'm not sure that would, because we've got a squad. We've got a 25-man squad. It's about fitting them all in now, isn't it?
Yeah. So, last couple of questions. Roy says, realistic striker. I'll chuck that in with Barry Hogan saying, would you break the bank for Gabriel Jesus? Thoughts on that, Joe?
Yeah, Barry's just took the words out of my mouth, Steve. If there's any opportunity to get hold of him, I'd sign him tomorrow. I absolutely would. I said my dream signing would be Haaland. I have to forget about that now. That's not happening. We're led to believe Nunes is on his way to Liverpool, if you believe what you read. So who would I sign? I nearly went for it there. Hugo and Jesus. That's who I'd go for.
Okay, what about you, Ben? I mean, I've got to say, my first choice was Ekitike. If we couldn't get Ekitike, I'd like to see Calvert-Lewin. I think Calvert-Lewin would do a great job under Howe at Newcastle.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't go for Calvert-Lewin. Second. I probably I'm not sure I'd go for him purely for the injury record. So
bring him in.
It's a her.
Sorry, bring her in. Oh, I see she's been busy.
Have you got your face painted? No, I'd probably go for. I really like Ivan Toney. I think he could do a job for us. I like Victor. I can never pronounce his name. Osimhen. I was looking at his stats the other day. They are really up there. Jesus. The thing with him is he's got the quality, but it's just I don't know this. He hasn't actually had that many opportunities for Man City to score, to play week in, week out. But he seems to, when he does play, he seems to score. So the stats are a little bit misleading because a lot of them, his appearances are sub appearances. So I think he'd be the one for me, Gabriel Jesus. But we'll see.
We're slightly overrun, and you've got Dad's chores to do. I'm going to leave the final word with Michael, who says, "I'm the biggest atheist in the world, but would love Jesus in a Tuesday." Good way to finish. I'm back in the morning, 10 o'clock, a little bit earlier tomorrow with Ross Gregory. I just want to say thanks to Burnsie. Ben, give him a follow on his Twitter account. Well worth following.
Cheers.
Thanks as always to you, Joe, mate.
Thanks for having me on.
And thanks to everybody in the chat, and thanks to the moderators. Be lucky. See you all tomorrow. Take care.
See you
Bye.
guys. See you, Ben. See ya, mate.